Hello.
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 Hello. Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of the Unpredictabilities of Life. Or, in short,
Abdul.
we're back.
Yay.
There's been a bit of a gap between the previous episode, but hey, what you gonna do?
In this episode, we sit down with our lovely friend Sahar. She's a type designer and a lecturer at university. Type and font design can feel like a distant niche world. Something interesting, perhaps, but not especially relevant to everyday life. If that's how it feels to you, you're very much mistaken, my friend. Every Word document you create, every Instagram story you post, and every book you choose to read is shaped by typography and, more importantly, by how those fonts make you feel. I should also add that Sahar is an exceptionally kind, subtle, and a generous person with a sense of humor that is entirely her own. Quiet, sharp, and perfectly timed.
Our conversation goes everywhere in the best way. We talk about her journey into professional type design and education, the unexpected realities of working with type, and some mind-blowing facts about fonts that might just make you think twice about the next font you come across.
We also get into why so many Arabic fonts on Instagram miss the mark and they're so hideous. And also what good type design really requires and why language, especially our mother tongue, makes us sound more ourselves. It's a thoughtful, nerdy, and unexpectedly funny episode and full of those quiet oh moments that linger.
It's super encouraging hearing all of your feedback, so please keep it coming. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on Spotify.
Thank you.
Not my own. I can't listen to myself, but yeah, the other ones.
Sahar, hi. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, thank you both so much for the invitation. I listened through the first two episodes like back to back. Shooting knows I don't have Spotify anymore, but I downloaded it because the second episode wasn't on YouTube yet, and I was like, I'm gonna do it just for this. So yeah,
We
excited
are
to be
very
here.
excited. We're going to ask you like questions throughout the whole podcast, but I think both of us want to hear the whole story, your story from yourself and basically unedited.
Yeah, I'll try to not elaborate too much, but in a bit of a big nutshell. Yeah, so as you said, we were both students at the University of Tehran in the paradise of fine arts. You were studying industrial design. I was studying, it was called graphic communication, or visual communication, but graphic design essentially. And part of one of the courses that we had to do there, we had like typography 1, 2, 3, 4, and typography 4 was essentially type design. So when I started doing that project, it's funny because I'd already started doing a little bit of type design badly for my graphic design projects, because I don't know if you remember this, Shirin, but back then there were like 3 or 4 fonts that we would all use. Like there were more, but as design students, there were like 3 or 4 where we're like, yeah, these are the good ones. We're going to use them in our projects. And there wasn't that much more beyond that. There wasn't a lot of like funky, cool looking typefaces if you wanted to communicate a particular vibe. So I started doing my own, not very well, badly, but when we got to this typography 4 course, it was really exciting for me. And I started working on a typeface. And then we had a teacher who really encouraged me to carry on with it for my final student project, because you have to deliver like a short thesis. Mine was terrible. And a practical project that was a bit better. And so I did my final undergrad project was a font family Arabic. The script was Arabic, or Perso-Arabic, because some Iranians will get unhappy with me if I say the Arabic script, but that is what it is generally referred to. It's like when we say Latin script, and it works for so many languages in the world. The Arabic script is also used in many regions of the world, including Iran. That was my final project, and I really enjoyed doing it. And after that, I was thinking about doing a master's, and I was someone who, you can hear the accent. I grew up in Canada, hence the sort of obnoxious North American accent. And it was tough for me because we came back to Iran when I was around 10 years old, and kids are can be quite mean to someone who's like sounds a bit funny and doesn't speak the language quite right and doesn't quite fit in. It was a big adjustment. So I was always thinking, at some point I want to like leave again, which is weird because by the time I left and I was what, 24
Mm-hmm.
to leave to do my master's, I had then like sort of assimilated again in Iran. So it was yet another move away from familiar. But anyway, I wanted to do a master's degree and I wanted it to be in the field of type because I felt like there's a lot to do. Back then, this is like 2012 when I graduated, there still wasn't a lot of fonts out there. There still wasn't a lot of research on the writing system. And I really wanted to just continue along that path. There was a few options. One was this university here in the UK, the University of Reading, where there was a type design program, and there was one in the Netherlands. And those were pretty much the options.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were a lot of typography courses, but type design specifically, it was those two at the time. There's more now. And I applied and I got a scholarship to do the one in the UK. This was 2012. And then my visa got rejected
Oh,
by the UK because I had gotten the scholarship. And I was like, oh, there you go. That's the funds taken care of. And I completely missed the fact that the fees are different for UK students and international students. I had gotten the fees that cover sort of UK students' expenses, whereas it's like 10,000 more if you're an international student. So they were saying, oh, your bank statement didn't show enough funds. And I was so devastated. I think this was like the biggest blow that I'd had in my life until that moment. Until that moment, it was sort of like, yeah, everything was kind of, there were difficulties, obviously, but this was the first sort of outside systemic sort of like no, where you're like, I can't do anything about this. This is completely now like, so
yeah.
I deferred my acceptance and I went back to Iran. And this is where I started a job where I was teaching at a school called foundry.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my first job, but it was my first like adultish job. And taught English the first year I was there.
A question. This is this before we
It's
came?
before, yeah.
Yeah, it is before. This is
Yeah.
before.
It's
Yeah,
2012,
before
13,
we
14.
got
Yeah.
to the UK.
12, 13.
Yeah. Yeah, I should also mention that this whole visa system for us has been life-changing thing. It's a lot of stress you go through. I remember mine was very tricky and mine got sorted out last minute. Like I got my documents wrong. I went to the embassy in Dubai and they were like, this is the wrong one. And you feel like, okay, this is it, you blow
Yeah.
it. And I literally begged them and like I was weeping, let me please. And they're like, well, you can book an urgent appointment or something like that, emergency appointment or something like that. And you have to pay so much extra. It's such a stressful situation.
It's horrible. It's dehumanizing and it's stressful and it's expensive because, as you say, like at that point, there was no UK embassy in Iran. So you had to either go to like Dubai. In my case, I went to Abu Dhabi, I think,
Yeah,
or Turkey or something like that. And if you go to the embassy in the UAE, they keep your passport. So we couldn't leave. We were
yeah,
there until they would make a decision. And the decision was no. And I was just so ashamed because my parents were paying for this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have failed them. I've lost the scholarship. It was really sad. So I was like, yeah, we went back to Iran. I needed a while. So I took like it was I deferred it for originally for a year and then another year. I was just it was still a bit traumatic for me somehow. And I taught during that period and it was actually incredibly nice. So speaking about unpredictable things, like the job sort of fell in my lap because I could speak English, because I had this like sort of skill in my toolbox. A friend of mine, her mother was the principal of the school, and she knew that I, had this ability with the English language, and they offered me the job, and I took it. And it was first sort of a substitute situation. I was filling in for somebody else who was had to take a leave, and then it worked out. They liked me as a teacher. They thought I was doing a good job. So the next year they offered me a full-time position teaching a few classes English, and a few of the younger kids, it was like a high school situation. The first years I was teaching them art.
How did you feel teaching? I mean, it's not like you had training on being a teacher or something.
Yeah,
Because right now it's so difficult. Like any job you want to do, everyone is like, "Do you have certificate in this? Do you have that?" But it
it
wasn't the
wasn't
case
the
back then,
case.
I
It's
think,
you're
wasn't it?
right. Every job requires like the certainty of some sort of training or academic like sort of certificate to show. I think having said that, I still think even now knowing someone is the easiest and best sort of way to secure a job. Even you can have all the degrees, but
Yeah,
getting a job is still easiest if you know someone who knows someone who knows, you know?
yeah, 100%.
It's all built on trust, right? On in that respect, it's a trust thing. So if somebody works there, they know you and they can vouch for you. That's kind of that can be a way in the door.
Absolutely. That's why I think one of the most important skills that you can learn in life, like, you know, school, whatever. I was terrible at school. I was a really bad student. But learning, like maybe it's all the moving around. I mean, I know Shirin, you did that as well. Maybe living in different places, it gives you the skill, like communication skills.
Hmm.
And I think being able to do that, growing your network, knowing how to talk to different people from different backgrounds, that is actually something really important that you can do for yourself because yeah, then that gives you a lot of different people who can vouch for you and say like, yeah, this person is capable in so and so different ways and they know this and that and they have this and that sort of skill. And yeah, I love teaching.
Yeah.
It was sort of thing where I was kind of learning on the job, but it came really naturally. And I love those kids. So Farzan Agan, for anyone who doesn't know, because you only know if you're from Iran, it's like a school for the smartest of the smart. They're like the gifted children, and it's essentially just like, you know, they have a really difficult test to get into the school. And the Iranian school system, like it's already so difficult anyway, but these kids even go beyond that. They have like their own set of school books that they have to read, and it's kind of easy being a teacher to children like that because they're like, yeah, I want to learn. Yeah, I already know like the easy stuff. And for the kids that are in the final year of high school, they don't have an internal school exam, they have a countrywide exam. And that's so easy for them because it's like the stuff that they're expected to learn, they've probably already learned in elementary school. So I try to keep my classes mostly fun because I think, you know, how much of the stuff that you learn in school do you actually carry on as an adult? I remember it was around that time that Frozen, the first Frozen came around. Oh my gosh. I watched this movie like 6 times. I knew, like, you
Did
know,
you?
yeah, because once you put it out in one class,
I'm not
everyone is like,
judging.
how come we don't get to watch Frozen? And I was like, okay, you can watch Frozen too. So I knew, like, people know the song, the Let It Go song. I know every line in that movie. Yeah,
So I am guessing you
I
liked
really
it.
liked it. I'm still in touch with some of those like students that are now graduating from their undergrad degrees. Like now like these past few weeks I've been seeing them posting like, oh, I graduated from McGill, I graduated from
Oh,
UCLA, whatever. They're finishing their master's degrees, which is amazing. Sometimes some of them come to London and they're like, can we meet? And now they're like, they've gotten past, in Iran, we always call teachers by their last names. They've gotten past it. They're calling me by my name now. So that's interesting to see. But
that's a new level unlocked.
it's a new level unlocked. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
after that, I went 2014, I finally came here to the UK. I'm now based in London, so I started in Reading, which is a university town. Big difference from Tehran, obviously.
So did you get to keep your
No,
scholarship
no, I had to apply
or
for it again,
hmm.
and I didn't get it a second time. I don't know, they were like, she might not
Oh.
just show up again. But you know, I'd been working during this time, I had saved up some money, and my parents, I'm very lucky. I have generous parents who were happy to support me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I did not get the scholarship, but I did the program, and this was not a type design program. I didn't get in. I didn't get into the KBK program. I didn't get into Reading for type design. I got into Reading for research and typography. And
Mm.
when I went there, I went to the head of the type design program and I said, I want to come to the classes. And he said, you won't have time. It's a year-long program. It's difficult. And I said, I'm going to do it. And I went to the book design because there was also a book design course. And I was like, I want to come to the library sessions where you look at old manuscripts and books. And they're like, you won't have time. And I said, I want to do it. And I did. Again, I was fortunate I could take this year to just focus on the studies. I wasn't worried about like I need to also do a part-time job or anything like that. So I am very aware that I had the privilege to do that, but I did. I went to all the type design courses. I went to some of the courses with the book design students, and I would go to the classes where the type design students would get feedback on the typefaces they were drawing. And I would sort of try to like figure out what parts of the design they had to look out for. And once I graduated, and this Shirin will remember, we had like 2 months to find a job, or then we had to leave the UK.
This is where we got closer as
Yes,
like people,
yes,
friends.
exactly. I remember we would like
Yeah.
go to the British Library, right?
We were sharing the same pain.
Like, remember trying to find like an empty table to sit
Yeah, I
at?
remember that. Oh my God, yes, those were
Yeah.
really hard days. I remember vividly the conversations we had about like our plan
Yeah.
Z, let's say,
Like,
if things go south.
I don't know, maybe I could work in a Persian restaurant. We were like,
I mean, do you remember I said maybe we should like write on placards and go in tube and say like, give me a job, any job. I was
I
at
remember,
that
and I
point.
think you mentioned this in
Yeah.
your episode as well, that you were like really like, I do not want to go back to Iran. I wasn't quite there. I was like, if I find something great, if not, something will happen. And of course, that mindset matters. You got a job, and I was like, bye. It's been 2 months.
Well, no, it's about options. It's about options, and every person's situation is different,
absolutely.
obviously. As you said, I mean, I think for you, you have Canadian passport?
No,
I'm
no,
assuming.
no.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Because in my head, I was like, maybe because you had that privilege or you had the option, it wasn't if I go back, I can't come out
Yeah,
again
I think I had
sort
that
of
mindset
thing.
anyway of like I did it once, I can do it again.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay. I had a Canadian visa.
Mm.
So it's what I did after that was I just spent that year sort of because I had work. It was just not full-time work. It was freelance work. So I was doing some freelance type work and I started sort of country hopping a little bit. I would go from like Canada to Iceland to New York. It sounds like I'm like this sort of rich, spoiled brat. I was sleeping on like an uncle's sofa, my sister's like air mattress. It was this sort of a situation, living out of a small suitcase.
Just making the most of
Yeah,
the opportunity, right? To travel as well as
absolutely. I was like, okay, I didn't get a job, but maybe like at least there's something else that like I can do here. A little bit in Turkey, a little bit in India. And I went back to Iran. I spent some time with family and friends a bit more there too, but I like shooting. I still did not want to live in Iran.
Yeah.
And then this sort of PhD opportunity came up and it was being circulated through email from people that I knew from the masters. And I'd been to a few type design conferences and like the connections I'd made there, they were sharing this with me saying, oh, you could do this. And it was from Birmingham City University. There was a scholarship attached to it. The topic was already set out. The advisors, PhD advisors were like already, it was all there. It was just like, we need the right person to do this. So, and I remember at the time I was in New York, I just filled out the application and sent, and I was like, we'll see. I got an interview for it. It was 4 in the morning in New York when they set the time. So I woke up at 4 in the morning and dunked my face in ice or something to make myself look not terribly sleepy, and put on a smart shirt, and yeah, I got it. I got the PhD. The amazing thing is at the time it was not like as it was set out, it wasn't really aligned with my personal research interests. However, there is this lovely thing with a PhD where you can make it more your own. And some jobs are like this too. Like there's a job description and you apply for it. And once you get it, you can sort of change it to suit what you're interested in doing a bit more. A lot of teaching jobs are like this. So yeah, I got that PhD. Again, another visa application for the UK. This time we were very smart about it. We went to Turkey and I first went to the embassy, like the Iranian embassy, and got an exit paper. So I didn't have to stay in Turkey.
Mm,
Gave my passport,
smart.
came back to Iran with a piece of paper that said I could enter the country and that my like passport was being held at the UK embassy. And then there's people who do this as a living, talk about like jobs. And since we're on that topic, there are people who, as a living, they hang out at these embassies. And for people like me, they like ask you for $100. I don't know, at the time, I think we paid this guy $100 or whatever to go get your passport and then ship it to you.
Yeah.
That's essentially like that it's amazing. That's someone's job. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
business
because
model,
there
isn't
must be
it?
so many people. Like, imagine however many people are doing this on a daily basis, you make like an easy 500 a day. I don't know, something like that.
Exactly.
And you're hanging out,
Yeah.
it's in a big mall, the Visa Center. So it's like you're hanging out in a mall. You go, you do a little bit of business, do a little bit of shopping. I don't know. Um, I'm probably really oversimplifying this person's life, but it's interesting as a business model. Um, yeah, and then I came back to the UK. I did my PhD full time for 2 years. Then I got a job opportunity at a type design studio in South London. Yeah, it still is based in Brixton, a type design studio called Delta Mug. I applied, I got the job, I got a work visa, and I converted my PhD to a part-time PhD and amazingly still got to keep my scholarship, which is fantastic because usually when you're part-time, they just immediately take it from you, but this didn't happen. And then yeah, I learned a lot more type design skills on the job as you do.
So you're still working with this
I
company?
worked for Delta Mug for 5 years. Essentially, I quit in 2023, so work back. I think I started early 2019,
Mm.
2019, yeah, early 2019. And I quit towards the end of 2023. Um, and now I have my own little company.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, but before we get to that, we will get to that because I'm really interested, and I only found out about it
Yeah,
just last week, and I had a look, and it was
thank you.
beautiful. So congratulations. Before we get to that, the thing is, from the outside, your career looks so cohesive, right? Design, research, teaching, and beautiful. But what were the messy or painful parts behind it?
Aside from trying to
Yeah,
get a
I think the
visa
visa was the
and
sort of
being
most traumatic thing. The messy parts, I mean, I could go on and on about the messy parts, right? There's this psychologist, Paul Rosen, who's an expert on disgust, and I think it's amazing that you can be an expert on disgust. But he has this thing where he says that a single cockroach wrecks a beautiful bowl of cherries, but a single cherry does nothing for a bowl of cockroaches, right? You just always remember the worst parts of something. As human beings, we're just predisposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So with the job, I can like, if I think about it, like I'll immediately remember the bad parts. And whenever you have a job where there's a hierarchy and what you do or don't get to do is decided by one person, um, there's going to be bits that you don't like doing. There are a lot of parts of type design that are tedious. I remember when, I'm sure this is a topic on its own, but when COVID happened, there wasn't a lot of work because people don't need fonts when they don't like, one of the first like the like most unnecessary thing is fonts, and it's like, okay, if we don't have money, that's the first thing to go. So there wasn't a lot of work. The company was great at not letting people go during that period. I did go on furlough for a while, but I was getting like the most mundane, tedious tasks assigned. Um, and yeah, like there were so many other things. Like they had this mentality of like non-compete that was very heavy in this company. And when a teaching opportunity came up for me that would not interfere with my work at all because it was online and um, it wouldn't interfere with my work hours essentially because the teaching opportunity was going to be like 8 p.m. London time.
Mm.
So I was going to do it on my own time, but when I told them about this, because you have to tell them when you're like you have a full-time contract, you have to still tell people if you're doing any sort of work outside of your work, your main job. They said we can't let you do this because of this sort of
Mm.
competition, creating competition mindset that they have. And I was devastated by that. And I think that's like the first thing that really made me think, I don't think I want to be here anymore.
It must have felt really limiting, right? When it's something that's not going to affect the job itself, but they're still saying you can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like before I'd started doing that job, I'd had a few years of freelance under my belt. I think a lot of people that start working in a place like that come out of university and do it, so they don't really already have knowledge of working with others in the industry necessarily. Obviously not everyone was like that. But like to go there and, have these experiences, I was being invited to speak at conferences. I wasn't getting a lot of support internally. They don't really have this sort of mindset of crediting people for the work they do. It was all like the company did this. Um, I understand it from a business point of view, but personally, it starts to become a bit grinding. It's like I was starting to feel like, I could be anyone just sitting at a keyboard.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, there were a lot of parts of it that were grinding and, you're doing it every day. I started to feel like, it's a big company too. There was like 50 people working at it at some point. And when you have a lot of people and you have to find work for them, we would have this process where we would get peer reviews for our designs, which is important. It's an essential
Mm.
part of type design. But you get one peer review, you get two, you get three, you get four for the same document at the same stage. And at some point, like every little bit of personality in the design is being stripped away, right? And it's like at some point, it's like anyone could have drawn this. Like it doesn't matter if it was me or somebody else in the company because all like everything that was like a personal detail or touch is gone now.
All that creativity gets pulled out of it, right? And then it just becomes something. What's the word? It just becomes something very, I don't know, very very distant, and it doesn't convey your.
Also, I mean, there's this thing in Farsi. You maybe you can translate this. It becomes a shotorgov palang. Uh, it becomes something that is everything and it's
Yes.
nothing
I mean,
at the same time.
Shotorgov Palang is like a camel, cow, leopard. Yeah, it's like what what is it?
I think that shotorgov palang is another name for ostrich.
What?
Makes sense.
Yes, it's another name for ostrich because it runs at like a cheetah or a leopard. It has long neck like a camel, and it looks like a
It's big like a
oh,
cow?
and it I don't know why. Yeah, it's like big like a cow.
That's amazing.
Anyways,
I did not
yes,
know that.
that's the road.
You digress.
So yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I remember these things, but I also remember that I worked with really amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best part. Especially pre-COVID when we were going into an office, I was working with some of the smartest, kindest people that you can imagine. They were teaching me on like almost every project, you're designing type and you're doing it for a client and they want a specific thing. So it's a different project each time. You get to learn new things with each project, and everyone in the company sort of had their little bits of expertise, so you could always go and learn from them. I learned how to code fonts, which is a whole other side from the design. We there's a phrase called engineering. I find it really problematic because we're not engineering anything. We're writing code to make the fonts work because they're software essentially, right? Fonts. So I learned how to do that. I learned how like the process works from the beginning to the end, and I got to work with really big clients who otherwise wouldn't come to me.
Mm.
So getting to see your fonts in use in like large print screens, whatever, that's really cool. So there were definitely highs to it. I think at some point, like I quit right after my maternity leave because I got pregnant, and then I, I, I started to take once my pregnancy leave started, and
Mm.
I think I was like 6 months into it or something like that, and I was like, I feel so relaxed. And then I was like, why am I so stressed? I designed fonts. I don't save people, like, I don't hold someone's life in my hand. I'm not doing surgery with a scalpel. Why is it that this creative pursuit of mine that I love doing, and I still love doing it. I've always loved designing type. Why is it such a cause of anxiety and stress in my life? And that can happen when you're working in a bit of a corporate situation, right? Timelines and deadlines and overpromising and bending over backwards for a client to make something happen. And I was just like, I don't want this. I don't want this for myself. I don't want this for my relationship with my partner. And I don't want this for this kid that's going to come into this world. Kids are a source of anxiety on their own. I don't need something like I don't need it in all areas of my life. So that's when I just handed in my resignation. I did a lot of freelance work after that, and
Mm.
the teaching job came back around. So I was able to say yes this time, and I love that. I still do that now. It's a postgraduate course that I teach online to students all over the world, type design.
That's
It's
amazing.
amazing. And yeah, we just recently launched our own small studio with my partner in life and in the studio. So it there were definitely these like not so great bits. Visa issues came back. I now have like a British passport, but that was a bit of a headache to sort that out. It worked out for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, first and foremost, congratulations, because I'm so happy that you and Jose did this, because I think, I mean, he has the same, like he works in the same industry, but I don't know if exactly he does what you do as
Yes,
well.
he does. The tech world is very small. So we were sort of like in each other's
Mm.
orbits for a while. So this is about my partner, Jose. Jose is a unicorn, I think, amongst people who do this job because he studied in Chile. He did an undergrad degree. And
Mm.
then he was doing, like me, he was doing some freelance work. And he applied for this job that was here in the UK, same company I was working at, and he got it, and they got him a work visa. So he doesn't have
Mm.
any like degree like from the UK or something like that, where like in a field where there's not that many
Wow.
jobs, so there's a lot of competition. So in that sense, yeah, bit of a unicorn. He started
Yeah.
as like a more code-oriented engineering role, which was his first job, but he was doing design anyway. So at the beginning, this company had very separate roles. There was a design team, there was a software team, there was an engineering team, and all of these roles were separate. Um, but then they shifted at some point, and anyone who joined had to learn the entire process. So everyone had to be able to
Yeah.
pick up any part of the project. We do the same thing, but we have complementary skills. Jose is much better at the technical stuff. He is a much better designer of Latin type than I am. He won't touch Arabic type. He won't touch any script he can't read. So I do more of that. And we have a multi-script type foundry, so we do both Latin and Arabic fonts.
It blows my mind that fonts stem from code. I had no idea about that. And I genuinely thought that, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it before, but I guess if I were to think about it, I just assumed fonts would be designed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought they would be designed, I guess, through sketches and then digitized and then I had no idea it could be you could code
I
fonts.
mean,
That's
we
crazy to
blow
me.
our students' mind with this every year because it's very much what you say. I mean, people have different processes. I haven't drawn on paper in a long time, but I just draw directly in the software that I use. And then you are drawing a letter A, as you would imagine. You like mouse, trackpad, whatever. You're using click points on a screen, construct the letter. But what the software does is it saves those points you've drawn. Anyone who's drawn vectors sort of will like remember that you draw little points to make an image. What the software does is it saves that as coordinates, as numbers in a file, right? The letter A is this point on X and Y, followed by this point on X and Y, et cetera, until you have the whole outline.
Wow.
That's why fonts are essentially such, like they can be. I mean, obviously you can make them really extensive character sets and complex outlines, but they're so light, the files, because it's essentially just like
Mm.
a series of numbers. And then, yeah, you have to write out code to say, like, yeah, like, it can get really complicated really fast, right? You have a handwritten font style where you have five A's and you want to tell the software, okay, when someone is typing with this, I don't want the same A to appear in the same, like twice in the word. I don't want it to appear twice in the same sentence. So all of this is code. You just write out like, okay, if you see this A, like if you have the combination of an O next to this A, switch it for this other A.
Oh my God.
Crazy. I had no idea. So it's like if this appears here, we like do this instead. It's just like a set of instructions, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then, like with Latin, it's actually the easiest writing system to work with. With other more complex ones, it gets so much more difficult. Like for Arabic, you have
Oh
positional
my
forms,
God.
right? If a
Yes.
character has character, like if it's connecting on the right or left or on both sides, it has a different
And
shape.
in Arabic, the letters are connected to each other. It's not like in Latin that each alphabet or each letter is separate and is just living on its
Yeah,
own. That's a whole different.
exactly.
Oh my God. Why has no one
I
ever said,
know.
why haven't you ever mentioned it? That like I code.
Well, it's funny because it's on the surface, it seems like the font seems simple, but there is like this is the thing, like our course that we teach at it's called Type West, by the way, Type West Online. There's an in-person one too. I think a lot of students come into it not knowing that it's like so much. It's such a steep learning curve. Because there's so many parts to it, right? Like you're designing, you're spacing everything because you need to say like, okay, on the right side of the O, there's going to be this much space. On the left side, there's going to be this much space. And then if you draw an A and you draw a V and you're drawing everything in like a little rectangle, right? So what happens if you put a rectangle with an A in it next to a rectangle with a V? There's going to be a big gap between them. So you do a process called kerning. So this is code again. You say, okay, if an A is next to a V, nudge them closer together by however many units. So you kern. We have a process of hinting, which is a different software. This isn't very necessary for Macs, but Windows processing, the way the pixels turn on the screen is determined sort of, you don't want that to happen randomly. So we do something called hinting, which is just optimizing the appearance of the letters at any given size on a screen. So you say at 9 point, turn on this pixel and this pixel and this pixel, or rather, like turn them off, right? Um, so that the letter A shows in this particular way. And then you have to do that for every point size, usually from like around 8 or 9 until 72, where you say, okay, now you can turn hinting off. Macs don't need this. They have internal hinting processes for
This is
themselves. So
fascinating. It's amazing. It's just
there's
something that you take for
font
granted.
learning.
You completely take for granted in everyday life. It's amazing. Let's. Would you be able to put a timeline on what it would take for, let's say, an English handwritten font? Sort of how long that process would be to design one from scratch?
I mean, we've done ones where it would took us like 3 weeks from beginning to end because it was like really straightforward, what we call an English campaign set, which is uppercase to lower and lowercase A to Z, numbers, basic punctuation. So this is in one weight. So that's one single font that you're exporting at the end. That can be quick, but you can also do a handwritten font. And at the company I was working at, they were doing one for Lush, which I think a lot of people have seen. It's like bath products.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more than that, but it's like
Yeah.
hygiene, soaps, bath bombs, etc. And Lush has this like very sort of, it's part of their branding, this handwritten thing, which they used to do with handwriting, and they really wanted a font that could reflect that as well. So that took a long time because they wanted a lot of alternates for each letter, so it really felt handwritten. Like you won't write an A the same time, the same way every single time. So I think there were like what, 5 or 6 alternates for each of those. And I think that one took a few months. And then it was a big, they have stores in many different countries, so they needed like all the diacritics, let's say, that you need in Poland, etc. So
Yeah.
that became a much bigger project.
So you're talking like months and months and months with a team of people working on the different.
Yeah. I mean, when you're working in a company that big, you'll get like 3 or 4 people working on the project simultaneously with one sort of person leading the design. So it goes by quicker. If you're one person, it will take a much longer time to achieve that same result. And I think they also did like a color font for that client, which was quite cool because when you're writing with a marker, you get like overlapping grays that then create dark spots where they do overlap. So it was a black on black color font, which was really cool. Yeah, I actually, for this company that we have ourselves, which is called Dog Ray, a type foundry, I did a handwritten style Arabic font. And that one is also based on like this marker writing. And for that one, Shirin was mentioning in Arabic letters connect. Per connecting letter, I did like 10 alternates.
Oh my
So
God.
that's a really big character set, and it took a really long time to do that. And then the engineering for that is quite complicated too, because then it's like, okay, if this letter connects to this letter, when this other letter has come before it, change it to this shape. And yeah, that one took a long time to achieve.
Having like being a Farsi speaker and using Farsi Arabic fonts with different
Yeah,
fonts throughout all these years, I have seen many errors and bugs happening with different fonts, and you
yeah.
can only imagine, like, think about all the variations of, like, we have 37 letters in Farsi. I don't know Arabic, but we have 32, 37. I don't know.
We have like 33, I think, or 34.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
yes, I mean,
I
I
know this.
used to be good at maths, not anymore. So I cannot like think about the variations of 33 letters and considering the vowels. And oh my
Yes.
God, that's crazy. I can imagine how long it could take. Um,
Yeah.
could you do something with the damn Instagram fonts, Farsi or Arabic ones, because they are
I
hideous.
know, and it's so unfair because you get all this variation in the Latin fonts and they keep expanding them.
Exactly.
And yet with the Farsi ones, even the options that you do have aren't very
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing. I'm sorry to whoever worked on those. They're just not.
They're basically the same, except for the newest one, the very newest one, which is like a few months old now. But I still
Yeah.
don't like it either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. And I really like what I do because I always say the purpose of fonts is diversifying the way information is presented. And that's why I think there are never enough fonts because then you are making like argument that we've had enough diversity. And I don't believe that. I think as many different peoples and mindsets and viewpoints that we have in this world, people can have a different way of wanting to present information. So it's really sad that for the millions of users of this writing system, there's like 3 options to use on this massive social media platform. And they aren't very good.
Yeah.
So like if Instagram is a very visual also platform where people are meant to be able to express things, you want to be able to give them the tools to do that properly. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily up to me. I mean, despite globalization and despite the fact that yes, there is like this understanding that we live in a multicultural world and people speak in different languages and communicate in different scripts, still the money and budgets are still mostly directed towards Latin, um,
Yeah.
and everything else is sort of in the periphery. And it's getting better, but it's not necessarily,
In
yeah.
the priority.
No, and it's the same for technology, you know. I think for even a few years ago, you would open Microsoft Word and you would type Arabic and it would be backwards and disconnected. Didn't have the proper support internally. So you were mentioning that a lot of times you see errors in Arabic fonts. It might be that the font is fine, but some issues need to be resolved in the typesetting software, desktop publishing software, websites, because
Mm.
everything also has its internal shaping engine that can be different from the next thing. When I make a font, I have to test it in Safari, I have to test it in Firefox, I have to test it in Chrome, I have to test it in Microsoft Word, in Adobe Suite, in Figma. I have to test it everywhere because they all work slightly differently. And we have to make sure it works in every single one of these places.
Wow.
I do wish I love getting these sort of projects because it's like, yeah, people should be able to communicate in a voice that feels authentic to them.
Which leads me on perfectly, Sahar, to I wanted to ask what motivates the design of a font in the first place? Like, what are the considerations that you think about when you have a project or a client comes to you and says, "We need a font for this." Like, what are the considerations with motivating that design?
Right. Well, if I'm working on something that's a sort of self-driven, self-initiated project, for me, it's like if I were like a graphic designer, because I started in graphic design, what would I want? What's missing in my toolbox of available fonts out there that are sort of quality made fonts? Um, or what do I think would be really cool or fun for me to draw? What's something I can learn with, something new? Yeah, something that hasn't been explored before. That's that's usually sort of, or I see like lettering somewhere. This Arabic font that I was mentioning that we launched in our foundry, it's called Majik, which means marker in
I
Persian.
love it, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. That was it came from, I looked at an Egyptian movie poster and there was really cool lettering on it, and I was like, I want to do that, but I want to make it something that I can draw because I don't want to just like recreate something that exists in sort of the visual language that's sort of Egypt in the 80s. First of all, it's not appropriate for me to do that. Second of all, it's not interesting because then again, I don't want to do something that's either already been done or somebody else could do. I try to make a lot of forms that I write when I'm doing handwriting. I actually took a marker and drew a lot of the letters myself to see what shapes I would end up with. When a client comes to you, it's a bit different. We always do this we workshop the idea with them. We talk about what they want, what their expectation is of this project, who they think they're going to be like, who their audience is, we do this sort of like sort of hopes and worries, like what do you hope? Like what's your dream expectation of the outcome of this font? And what do you worry about? So we do something like that where we just really try to collaborate with people instead of saying like we know best. We really try to hear them out, what their vision is, and then we show them a bunch of different fonts as well. Like, okay, if this is the tone that you're trying to achieve, which one of these fonts do you think is doing that the best? Just so we get like on the same level in terms of what the expectation is. And then for the first round, it's usually just sort of like drafts. We show them quick sketches, not very refined, just saying like, okay, here's this thing that you said you think might be work for it, this thing. And then we usually show them one thing that they haven't specifically asked for, but we think might
That's
work.
cool.
And then yeah. And then we can sort of combine ideas across the design drafts, or if none of them are really hitting the mark, which is usually that doesn't really happen a lot. Um, then we just go back to the drawing board, and it's like a sort of a collaborative process throughout. We have these touch points where we're like, okay, we've drawn every letter that's on your keyboard. Let's have a look. Give us your feedback. They give us the feedback, sign off. We start with the next phase. I don't know. Let's draw the diacritics. Let's add numbers. Let's add punctuation. So we just break down each project depending on the size into a few stages, and we just go back and forth with the client because we really like collaborative processes.
I love the fact that will obviously the client will come to you with their own ideas, but then you can go back with like an additional, like, this is what, you know, what we think it should be. And those are elements that I incorporate into my businesses with various different things, whether it be filming. You know, the client asks for one thing, and you can say, well, how about this? This might work better because you understand maybe a little bit better than they do. And I love that. It's a collaborative process, and it allows you to, first of all, like give them another perspective, because they might be stuck in their ways, like confirmation bias. They're thinking one thing, and you can show, well, what about this? And they might go down that route. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it always ensures the best outcome too.
This is, I think this, in a professional world where there is a customer or client, and basically a server in a way, I think it's a very common thing. I can relate to this in a way that, like in counseling and therapy, a person comes to you and is like, I know what's wrong with me, and shares the problem and shares their thoughts, their ideas. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And you listen to them and you acknowledge it. You show them the outcomes of their ideas and how it could like unfold, and but then also present with new perspectives and new angles to look at this issue. Or from what you're listening to or hearing from your client, I think you can both relate to this, that you realize an underlying need or a characteristic that they are blind to it in a way.
Yeah.
And you pull that out and show it to them, and they see it then and like, oh my God, yes, that's what I was looking for.
Hopefully it sticks, and they go, oh my God, why didn't I see this before? It's not always the case though.
No. But we do have the saying in Farsi, تشخیص درد نیمی از درمان است, right? Like a diagnosis is half the cure.
Yeah.
And that comes from listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that you've built this incredible career, right? Do you still feel like life is unpredictable, or do you see a pattern in the chaos?
Oh, I like to think like life is unpredictable. I don't like to think that, like, you know, I'm teaching, I have my foundry, I'm set. Who was it that says this? Was it Goethe? Something like human beings can bear everything except like constant joy. I think like that's a real thing, right? So I don't know. I more and more I've been wanting to like have a creative pursuit away from my creative pursuit as well. Obviously, again, I am very aware that I have been very privileged in my life to be able to do exactly what it is that I want to do, and now I'm able to do it in exactly the way I want to do it, because I am my own boss. I get to decide what projects I work on. I have flexible hours. I get to decide like when I work. So when my kid is in nursery, I can obviously do like more work. And I get to teach, and I get to teach not in that sort of traditional university setting where there's a lot of bureaucracy attached. It's a program that like where people trust me to set the curriculum. I have co-instructors who are amazing, and we like do our best to give the students the most out of this experience. All of that said, yeah, sometimes, especially recently, like my daughter, I was trying to read Gilgamesh to her. So this is an old Iranian epic, and it's in the form of poetry. So I was like, I'm just gonna read this to her. And then I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much in this book that is not appropriate for a child. Um, I I don't think there's anything wrong with prostitution if that's what someone wants to be doing with their life. However, it's like there's like there's it goes beyond like it's like there's like prostitution and there's like I'm not going to go into all the things that are in there, but it's definitely not for a 2-year-old. Um and I was like, okay, Gilgamesh is such a big thing. Like it's an epic. How do I like tell her this story without going into all the little like bits that her little tiny mind might not be ready for yet.
Mm.
So I've been like writing a little story for her, like a retelling of this with like Enkidu written as a young girl. So like I've been doing that a little bit, writing a bit more because, like I've written academically in the past, but writing fiction is a very different thing. And I as an anniversary gift, I got a loom from my husband. And my grandmother well, she doesn't do it anymore because she has like a lot of tremors in her hands, but she used to make beautiful carpets. And that's always something I wanted to do as well. I'm probably shit at it, but I want to try it. So I've been doing this a lot more, like sort of looking for little creative pursuits outside of my creative pursuit. And I am the sort of person who's open to trying new things and doing new things and sort of adapting to new
Mm.
situations. Who knows? Another COVID could hit,
Yeah.
right? Like people might not need fonts
Hope
again.
not.
What are you gonna do? I've always been told that I have a knack for voice imitation. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. My husband's always like, you should go and apply for like
Oh my God.
dubbing
Right.
things. It's it's a blessing and a curse, by the way. Like if I hang out with someone who has an accent for long enough, I'll start imitating it, not like
No, I know.
in
It
a
happens
monkey
to me
way at
too.
all,
Mhm.
but it's like a mirroring thing. I'm like, okay, like
For me, it's I mean, for you, I don't see that it's a bad thing because your English is very good. But for me, it's so embarrassing because I, in my own way of speaking English, I have 3 types of accents already. Right? An
yeah.
Iranian accent, sometimes automatically a British accent, and American, right? And it's already that camel, cow, leopard thing that we talked about. And then imagine speaking to a Scottish person or an Irish person, and I adopt it automatically, and I feel like, oh my God, they must be cringing so much because this is how cringe I am at the moment.
It's like it's like a British person abroad just like speaks. It tries to speak in a weird like Spanish accent if they're in Spain, but really slowly and loudly, and it's like what? It doesn't make any sense.
I think though, and I'm not just saying this because you are my dear friend, I think it's charming. I really do. And it's an immediate indication of this person knows yet another language. So, I like it.
Thank you.
I
Good.
really do. And like nobody could ever really figure out like Marlon Brando's accent, right? He had his own thing. You'll have your own thing. It's signature Shirin.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. So, another question that we have for you, Sahar, is that
Yeah.
what's one challenge that really shook your confidence, and how did you find your footing again?
Um, Honestly, for me, it was being able to find a job in the type world.
Really?
Like we were talking about how we couldn't find a job, right? Like I had this really expensive degree,
Yeah.
and at the end of it, it was just like, okay, bye. We like nobody wanted to hire me. Nobody like I mean, nobody first wanted to let me into these type design schools. Nobody wanted to hire me afterwards. It was a lot of like, okay, now I have to figure this out on my own. It's funny, I don't know why, but I've always sort of had this thing of like, I know I can do it. And now I look back at my initial designs and they were not good. But at the time, I had such sort of belief in the fact that I can do it. And I think it was really those first few people who like sort of acknowledge that as well. I mean, there was my professor in university who I said that, and this is the power of teachers that I always think like telling you that you are good at what you're doing and you are capable. And, people who just like sort of say, yeah, I see it too. And I had that, like, I had started drawing this typeface on my own. It's not published, it's out there. I named it Meh, which means affection and kindness in Persian. And I submitted to a few different type foundries and I was like, will you publish this? And I had one that I really wanted to work with. And like the two, I think I sent it to three people. Two others didn't even answer at all, didn't even answer the email. Um, and the third one, they were like, yes, it needs some work, it needs some refinement, but let's do it. And they publish it, and it's out there. It's a Thedas Arabic. And it's experiences like that, the foundry owners like Vic and Jose taking a chance on this like student. And I was like, I have a font published in the same type foundry as some of the most well-known, most respected, revered type designers in the world, people like Gerard Unger, etc. And I think that really started to like, and it was after that, like I had the font out, I was starting to do more conference talks. I did like I was offered a position as a judge on the Type Directors Club annual type competition, which is the big competition in the world of type. I was a baby back then, but I was like, if these people see it, it must also be there. I do wish that we didn't need this sort of external
Mm.
praise, but it's like I knew it was there, but once others started to also like see it and appreciate it and like invite me to be part of these projects and competitions and etc., that really helped with my confidence. And there's other things I had been doing when I started my full-time job at the studio in London that I mentioned. I had never worked on Latin type before ever. And most of the work they got was Latin type. I wouldn't be able to just be drawing Arabic fonts all day, which is what I want to do. So I felt so insecure and so afraid. I was like, and also the standards are so much higher. I feel like because with Arabic, um, and I'm saying this as someone who's drawing Arabic here in London, right? I'm not doing it in Iran where people know the
Mm.
moment something doesn't look right. The standards for Latin are really high, right? Because everyone here that's been drawing Latin for years will point immediately out the errors that you're making. And I wasn't very good. I had to learn how to do this, even though I'd been reading and writing in Latin my whole life. I didn't know how to draw letters for it. So that was a really uphill climb to sort of build up my skill set with this new writing system as well.
Last question before our fun segment. Uh,
Okay.
if you could name one lesson life keeps teaching you over and over again, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Be healthier.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like if I could go back, I would like exercise more and eat healthier. I mean, I don't know. These kind of questions are sometimes difficult because like there's a few things like there's that honestly like put your health first, sleep more.
Yeah.
Um, I'll like try to I think it's lovely when you have a partner that you can, that you work well with, that you're on the same level with. But having said that, I think it's also really important to be good at being not being on your own necessarily, because I'm not on my own ever anymore. But uh not necessarily relying on others or having expectations of others.
Mm.
I think maybe that's the main thing. Because once you start to have expectations of others, um, first of all, you might be having dialogues in your mind that they are not privy to, and you are also setting yourself up for disappointment and you're setting them up for failure. So I think that's really important. And for myself, going back to the previous discussions we were having, it's also this idea that I found that to increase happiness in my life, the important thing is to control my use of time.
Mm-hmm.
I like trying to essentially find more time to do the things that I enjoy doing. I actually really enjoy my work. the great indicator of that is that I don't like being interrupted when I'm doing my work.
Yeah.
Like resistance to interruption, right? Shows that you're enjoying what you're doing. So it's those things I think.
I completely resonate with that. It's the expectation disappointment kind of ratio.
Yeah.
It's like if you set your expectations super low, it's really hard to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because you're not expecting anything, and I think that leads to a happier, less stressful life, and it's something I live by, and I think
It works. Try it, people.
Great. So this is our fantasy segment where we ask our guest about a role that they might have fantasized about or are totally up for trying for just one day. Sahar, if you could jump into any role for just one day, no holds barred, let your imagination run wild, what would that look like for you? And run us through the day in the life.
Right. So I know this was coming because I listened to the previous two episodes. And I thought like, oh, how could I answer this without sounding completely pretentious? But I think I would like to, because I told you that I've been trying to write, like I would love to be in the mind of some one of my like the and Gilgamesh is like a fantasy, so I was thinking, fantasy and sci-fi, like how did the brains of people who write very well in these genres work? So like an Ursula K. Le Guin or a Ted Chiang, these people. If anyone hasn't read like Ted Chiang's short stories, you really should because they're amazing, like so smart, so clever and accessible, easy language, which is another indication of intelligence, actually. So I would love to like do that, but also I speak two languages. I speak Persian, I speak English. I'm learning a bit of Spanish. It's JLo Spanish. It never comes up in conversation. It's like it never happens that I need to tell someone how many Christian Dior think clothes I have in my closet, but I know how to say it. Um, However, like maybe a polyglot, maybe someone who can speak a lot of languages, because I think it operates in a different way. Like my sister says this, and I agree with her. She says this about herself, and I find it true of me too, that I'm smarter in English, but funnier in Persian. I think a lot of people might say this actually, because Persian is just a language that beautifully lends itself to being hilarious in.
Yeah.
But I have learned academically, I have been more taught in English. So, um, but you just fundamentally sort of interpret the world differently. And like, there's so many languages where there's fascinating ways of thinking about things. Like there's an Amazonian language, Tuyuka. I think it's called Tuyuka.
You know way much more about these things than I mean, I don't.
But it's really interesting because it requires the speaker to constantly encode how they know something through evidentiality in every verb. So what it means is like they wouldn't just say he played football. They would have to choose a grammatical ending that specifies whether they saw this playing of football happen directly, inferred it, heard it, or are reporting it as hearsay. Now, imagine this in this world that we live in now, where like, especially, I don't know, I don't know how you are shooting, but like my mom is constantly sending me links to things or telling me things, and I'm like, Mom, this is obviously bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
this is obviously nonsense. Why are you presenting this opinion as a fact? And my mom is like, she's a smart, educated, intelligent woman. It's just, they're so ready to be trusting. I think it might be a Persian thing. I don't know. And I mean, now with AI too, like, how do you know if something's, but I think this is really interesting, right? Because it forces this language a hyper awareness of the source and reliability of information. And then, like, I imagine it must train your mind to perceive reality, not just a series of events, but as a web of sort of verifiable, attributed experiences. And I think that's amazing. So, a polyglot, maybe just be able to see things and sense things differently. That would be cool. It was a
Wow.
pretentious answer in the end.
No, not at all.
No, It was a cool, smart
No,
answer,
I would love
and
to.
makes me feel
Hey,
embarrassed about my answer. God, can we do mine one? Can we do it again? Because we are the owner of this podcast, we have the ability
hey,
to
listen.
do this segment over and over again. Okay.
We can't because Mercha referenced your answer, so we can't.
Okay. Well, listen, Sarah, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Sahar. We've learned so much, and I've personally found a newfound appreciation for fonts and typefaces.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. There is no good conversation without good questions, and you're both a joy to talk to always. And I love this idea for this podcast. I've subscribed. I will be listening to future episodes.
And we are going to put links to your website and everything that people can reach out to you if they needed to in the description. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Sahar.
Super. Thank you both so much.